Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Trailblazer Technologies have developed a process to convert acid mine water into valuable fertiliser materials with purified water. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Hi Martin.
Hi Sashnee.
Can you tell us about this process and Trailblazer Technologies pilot plant?
Yes, I think John Busey has done an incredible job here, because for how long now have we been saying that the curse of acid mine drainage should not be a cost centre, it should be a profit centre. And we know Dr. R.E. Robinson, who died in December at the age of 86, he promoted this idea that you could get fertiliser materials out of these. Now we see that potassium nitrate is selling, at a lot of money. So you would get the purified water free. Instead, the Department of Water and Sanitation is now talking about spending 12 billion rand, on a process which provides as a byproduct gypsum, which has none of the value of the fertilizer materials. In fact, you're probably going to have the cement plant saying, well, we'll take it away at our cost, but don't charge us anything, or otherwise will you pay us to take it away? Because it's not as if we're short of gypsum. The cement companies have got that in South Africa. So how they could come up with this scheme when, Dr. Robbie Robinson, who's a former Mintech head, he's a visionary researcher, in 1996 came up with a solution that was along this route, and it was rejected. And again, the one that was selected by the Department of Water Affairs at the time fell flat on its face. And again, it was an expensive alternative, a 10 million rand at that stage alternative. That was a disaster. They had to close the plant down. Now, here we've got a situation where the government again seems very keen on spending vast amounts of money on a process that is outdated. Here they're still using the lime, and they're still saying, well, we'll get something out of the gypsum, but how much, we don't know. Trailblazer Technologies is showing that this can have a very good return on investment. So from a point of view of investment, you can attract funders, because if they're actually going to score out of this, why not go ahead with it, particularly as at the percentages that he's talking about. Now, I watched this yesterday. You went through it. It's not just talk. This is a pilot plant that works. And you can see it in operation. And the scale-up of it is not going to be very difficult for South Africans who are able to scale up a mixing situation that's involved. So I'm very keen that the Department of Water Affairs looks at itself in the mirror and says, why didn't we have this? We've been told about it since 1996. Is there no way we could have linked up now that it's developed even further, where you can get hundreds of millions of rands worth of profit out of this? What are they talking about, this capex with vague sort of return in three basins? The central basin, where they exhibited their system which makes sure that the water doesn't decant onto surface, but we're talking about the long-term solution involving possible reverse osmosis. This could be brought into that to make sure that you can make a profit out of this acid mine drainage, which we landed with because of our legacy of mining in the past. And we've also concentrated on the gold mines, but the real culprits are really the coal mines. So it needs to be expanded still further. And this is available from Trailblazer Technologies, a private sector company that's done this off its own bat, paid for all the research funding up to this point, and is now ready to offer it to other funders and work in partnership, perhaps with individual mines, because the mining industry is being called upon by government to pay 2/3 of the cost. Now, it's fine paying 2/3 of the cost if this is the solution. But if you've got a much better solution that can actually make you a lot of money, you'd like to be a 2/3 shareholder as well, I'm sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with this. But I've asked Trailblazer Technologies personally, as a taxpayer, to get in touch with the department, to put this to them fully. They should know about it, because part of it was presented to them in 1996.
You mentioned return on investment, and Trailblazer Technologies Director John Busey has mentioned he expects a 30% return on investment. Can you tell us more about this?
You know, that's a very good return on investment. I mean, I looked through his calculations yesterday, and he's ready to hand them out to anybody. But if you're working with a volume of water like 15 megalitres, you know, you actually end up with a substantial amount of potassium nitrate, which is selling at about it's selling at a good value. And he was saying that he would probably sell it at about 11,500 at a lower price than the actual retail price, because he'd sell it at a wholesale price. But still, you know, the figures that are looked at that need to be interrogated, of course, the program that he was working on ended up with like a 600 million rand bonus at the end of it all. So what are we doing complaining about this acid mine drainage when, you know, there is money in muck? And he's actually shown that it's got a very good return. The government should at least make sure that they talk to this fella, because we don't want taxpayers' money, you know, going down the drain in the way that, to me, it looks like it's going to happen with massive big structures, but not real chemical thinking behind it. And agriculturally, you know, this would be good for South Africa, getting this material for fertiliser, but also it takes the sodium out. Now, this is something people don't talk about. The sodium, it's a pernicious part of this acid mine drainage. That needs to be removed, because if you pass that on to farmers, you're going to make their agricultural burden huge, because it creates an impervious blockage, you know, to nutrients, and it actually destroys land. This particular process could turn some of our driest land into a Garden of Eden.
What are the benefits of this process as a long-term AMD solution?
Gives you the purified water free. You know, the cost that they're talking about is enormous. This, it says here, you can have it as a bond seller, this marvelously clean water, because we're going to get the revenue from the chemicals that are in here, the fertiliser materials, and there are also metals. I mean, because Dr. Robinson was wanting to go much further. He felt at Grootvlei anyway, you know, you could get cobalt and all sorts of metals out of that particular stream at Grootvlei. And we know that if they had gone ahead with that at Grootvlei, they may have saved that mine. You know, that mine's had an ignominious death. We still see every weekend after the other widows and wives, pictures of them, you know, no money coming out of that. The mine has just been destroyed, whereas it could have been kept going. We know there's still like 250,000 ounces of gold more. There's millions of ounces of gold in that Grootvlei mine. It's the water that stops you from getting it. But if you can do something with that water, and Dr. Robbie Robinson's formula was great, because he was going to involve the nearby squatter community, and he had about 7,000 jobs that he could offer in using this water for agriculture, because he always believed in linking the mines to agriculture. Busey now has taken it a step further. He's created potable water, drinking water from this, and you get it zero for nothing, while they take off, you know, the fertilizer materials and sell them and get a return on investment of 30%. I mean, it should be a no-brainer. How the state has not got the inkling of this when that was presented to them in 1996 is something that needs to be interrogated.
And on which mine will this process be used?
You know, I would like it to be used on that old ERPM mine in Germiston that is now the site of the Central Basin. And, you know, journalists visited that last week. The minister announced amid a flurry of trumpets that she had this long-term solution. But it's economically flawed, seriously economically flawed when you look at what can happen. Now, if they had to link up with Trailblazer Technologies, even now, even with the reverse osmosis idea and everything, they could actually benefit in a way that would create a revenue stream to offset some of the costs. Already 2.3 billion rand has been spent on the Eastern Basin in Springs, the central basin in Germiston, and that is with cooperation of the mining companies, because the land involved belongs to the mining companies. The shafts where they're drawing that water, so they've got submersible pumps being put into this acid mine drainage collection, and they draw that out with the submersible pump, so nobody has to go underground to get that water. And then they purify that water to make sure that it doesn't build up to an extent where it decants, because we had that uncontrolled decant where it was coming onto surface out in the Western Basin. They then triggered concern that this might happen in the Central Basin, in the Germiston area, and in the Eastern Basin, in the Springs area. And so they took these steps of getting submersible pumps to take that water out so that the level would drop, so that it wouldn't overflow onto surface. The next step now is to make that water which they're drawing out drinkable, or otherwise safe at least, so that industry can use it. This gives you wonderful water plus an incredible revenue stream that I'm sure some of the funders and the banks and the investment banks would say, look, if we're going to get a 30% return on investment, we should go for this. Even the mines now, who are being asked to fund to the tune of 2/3 the costs of 12 billion that are being built up in the gold area, which is really not as acute as the coal area, which should be the target. Fortunately, the coal mine companies, Anglo American and BHP Billiton, they got together a long time ago and they started creating potable water. And they also get the gypsum and they build houses with it. This process gives you fertiliser materials, which are important, and you can see by the price of them that there's a demand for them. So this is the route, in my opinion, to go, unless someone else can, persuade me. There's another one. But I was looking at what the government was doing and seeing the edifices and looking, they look quite impressive. But when you think of what they're going to churn out from taxpayers, they spent 2.3 billion, they're talking about another 10 billion. That 10 billion should be going on building phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands water scheme, which they haven't signed the treaty yet. They're 6 years behind. This is going to hurt the future growth of this Gauteng area, because water is inextricably linked to economic growth. You cannot have it. So it suddenly starts stunting the growth here. They should be working on that, but we don't hear anything. We do hear that they extracted 10% of water meant for Gauteng out of the Sterkfontein dam. Now, the minister must still answer. Why was that water extracted? This is meant for us. That's like 2 months' worth of Rand water. We still haven't heard. All we've heard from the department was that they will put it back. But that was 6 months ago. They haven't put it back. And I think that some questions need to be asked about water. This is a crucial thing. And if John Busey and his Trailblazer Technologies can come up with a solution like this, they are bound to look at it before they spend our money in a way that is outdated. So that is my plea to them.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Sashnee.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.